Woo, all hyped up on a whole hell of a lot of caffeine, baby. Woo, it is the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Sabzu, the Rated R Radio Star, here for your little Wednesday Patreon Q&A. And man, I found this, so there's a company called Kicking Horse Coffee. Okay, now I'm always looking for these really like insane, intense coffees, right? I mean, intense coffees. Like my favorite is Death Wish. Actually, my favorite from Death Wish is Zakk Wylde's coffee, which is Valhalla Java, is what he calls it. Odin Force Valhalla Java. I think that's the full name for it. Of course, Zakk Wylde, Black Label Society, Ozzy Osbourne. He's a guy. I've actually talked with Zakk Wylde. It's kind of a, I could tell you a very funny story about that. I think I told it years ago on social media, but anyway, just he's one of my favorite guitarists of all time. Real quick, I got to say, happy birthday to talk about one of the greatest guitarists of all time, Steve Vai. Woo, happy birthday, baby. Man, my life would not be the same without you in it. Let me assure you of that. And same goes for a lot of other guitarists, even though you know Joe Satriani, the real God, okay, is the one that taught you. But, whoo, anyway. Zakk Wylde, what a weird character, you know? I mean, like, because I think he's technically Christian, but man, I mean, I've talked to him. This guy acts like no Christian. I mean, not at all. Like, I've been backstage. Well, whatever. Anyway, so, but I do love me some Black Label Society. I do love me some Ozzy Osbourne, and I do love his coffee. But this Kicking Horse coffee, this is pretty good. So I've tried a couple different flavors that they've got. One of them is just called literally Kick-Ass. That's the name of the coffee. And yeah, it kicks some ass. And this stuff, 454 or 454 horsepower is the name of the coffee. And wow, has this been getting me through some, frankly, some very, very, very busy days as late, because we got a lot going on with Sovereign Tech, a lot of growth, a lot of great action happening there. But anyway, woo, you know, speaking of getting stuff done, in fact, last week's Q&A, we did kind of a whole segment at the end where, or it was based on it was a question about, you know, how to actually get shit done. You know, something that I'm really enjoying, I'll tell you. So because I'm getting ready for my workshop at PorkFest this year, where I will be showing people how to have like this really, you know, privacy-focused and anonymity-focused, I mean, a dark Android tablet, basically, a dark Android tablet, a dark Android Extreme tablet, no Google, none of that horseshit. Okay, I got to tell you, so I've been messing with tablets again for a little bit. In fact, quick update from this past week's episode of Sovereign Tech. Was it episode 280? Yeah, episode 280, where we talked about how Android.com got rid of the tablet section of their page. Well, it's back up. I might mention it on episode 281 of Sovereign Tech, but the tablet page is back up, but they didn't update it at all. Like, it's still showing tablets from like 2-3 years ago. I mean, it's really, really pathetic. I think they did take the page down, and I think just Samsung and Asus complained about it and said, hey, what the fuck? We're trying to ship product here. You know, you mind not screwing us over? It's just one fucking page on your site. Which I mean, because Google's claiming it was just a bug. Like that's all. That it was a bug that kept that tab from showing up. I mean, that's entirely possible, but I don't know. Anyway, that's what I think about it. But anyway, with the tablet, real quick. Okay, before I go on with the tablet, this week's episode of Sovereign Tech will not be the best episode. The following week's episode of Sovereign Tech will be a best episode, just so that you're aware. So episode 281 is probably going to be another solo show with me, but then the following week will actually be the episode with Ellen, Stephanie, and I know how much you love those, and we've got great stuff lined up for it. I can't wait, to go over it. So, but I mean, just, you know, it's just scheduling. That's all. No big deal. But anyway, of course, you know, I always can't wait to hang out with Ellen and, you know, Stephanie and I. It's always the best time. So really excited for that. Anyway, so yes, with the tablet, I broke out one of my old Nexus 7s, and I'm rocking that right now. And you get a little Logitech keyboard, right? And you go to town with it and everything. And man, like, I really love that setup. Now, I have my Nexus 7. I have a case on it that has a kickstand, effectively, that allows it to sit either horizontally or vertically on its own. And then you can, I mean, it's not lappable. Of course, that's kind of a problem, right? Where you can't. It's not like I can sit in bed and have it in my lap like I would an actual laptop. Of course, it's where the name comes from. But if you're at a desk or whatever and you've got it off to the side of you, like right now, I have the Nexus 7 that I've been using. Actually, it's on a little stand that was actually provided recommended very graciously by a Sovereign Tech listener. I need to get another one of these actually for the phone because I love having this tablet here so much. And I just break out the keyboard, and it's the same thing like with the Chromebook, and very similar to what I was talking about with the Asus E230. Is that what it is? The model that I'm using right now that I did a review for a couple weeks ago, where it's so single focus that it really lets you get shit done. Even though the tablet does also, has notifications a little more front and center. It still allows me, like, I really like having that, like, just packable and carrying it around. And the other nice thing is that if I can't break out the keyboard and I just think of something or I want to write whatever, there's a book out there called How to Write a Novel or a Novella in 24 Hours or How to Write a Novel in 24 Hours, something like that. And this book talks about how the way that you do that is you have to, like, you just, whenever you have like an opportunity or something, you just have to write. Like, even if all you have is your smartphone and you're sitting waiting for your oil change, you break out your smartphone and you start touch typing, and you keep writing that novel. That's how you get one done in 24 hours. And I read that book, 2-3 years ago. And that whole concept really works, and it fits in with what we were talking about last week. But with a tablet, at least for me, with my kind of ridiculous giant, double XL man hands here. I, with a 7-inch screen that the Nexus 7 has, a lot easier to get that, to do that touch typing if I need to. A lot more convenient. I mean, it's really, really handy. I think tablets are a very wonderful thing, and I've said that for a long time on Sovereign Tech. I'm half tempted. I've been looking at, there's the LG Stylus Q, which is like a 6.2-inch phone, that if somebody ends up like supporting it with Lineage OS or something like that, I'd be tempted to get that phone, because then it's that phablet style, and I could make use of it to be able to keep writing, because writing is a huge deal of everything that I have going on right now. So being able to get it done wherever I am, whenever I am, is pretty important. I mean, the tablet's handy. Of course, it doesn't have the persistent connection, even though the system that I'm using, or the app that I'm using for writing, does allow for, like a degree of a cloud sync that'll work with my NAS. But anyway, yeah, I really, really like, having a tablet, having something of that size that has such great battery life. And like the Nexus 7, I mean, the battery life's fucking ridiculous on that thing. I mean, in a good way. Like, it's so impressive. It just keeps going, and you could set it down and leave it in standby forever. And I mean, it'll sit there for days. Damn, do I love that little tablet. I'm so pissed off that Google effectively stopped making tablets, like, because they were the ones that were really doing it right. In many ways, even better than what Apple's doing with the iPad. But I get it. I understand why people love their iPads and why they keep them around for years, because, I'll keep this Nexus 7 around for as long as I fucking can. I mean, I love this thing. And I've always loved this thing. That's why I based an entire project around it, with Dark Android. So even though I do like Sony's Xperia line, some of its older Xperia line, where they were like waterproof tablets and everything, those are really nice too. Certainly those are just as valid, and they have great battery life, and they're rock solid, just like a Nexus 7 is. But usually when I'm telling people to do a Dark Android thing, setup, they want to go like a Dark Android Extreme, what I call it. That's what Dark Android Extreme is what I call, where you're really de-Googling and you don't have the Google Play Store and all that. Is where Dark Android is just when you secure and make and get privacy focused with your smartphone or even a tablet still. But when you're doing Dark Android, I mean, just the easiest thing to get your hands on and least expensive thing to get your hands on is a Nexus 7. So that's why I always use one of those and keep them around. That way I can show people, exactly, what they got. I mean, I guess the one flaw, and I'll be talking about this actually during my workshop with tablets, is that Signal is kind of a trick to get to run on a tablet, because you can't share. You can do a handshake with desktop environments between, say your Signal app on your smartphone or whatever, and you can, have it be cross-platform that way, but you can't actually have more than one installation of Signal and use the same number across multiple mobile devices, tablets and smartphones. So it's a little bit of a trick. Either you only have it on your tablet and you're linking it through, say, like just some phone number, be it a dumb phone number or something like that. But that's a little bit of a trick. But then, if you use, like we talked about in episode 280, if you use Briar, you can use Briar all over the place. Now, I mean, you can't sync Briar either, but, nothing stops you from installing Briar somewhere else. And you don't need a phone number. You just use a username. And so, your tablet can be a great platform for just using Briar. And because I'm such a big fan of that. But anyway, there's all kinds of things you can do with the tablet, and I'm not going to talk about that here. Maybe I'll do an episode in the very near future that's a review of the Nexus, of the 2013 Nexus 7. It'll be called like 5 years later, right? How does it hold up? I mean, honestly, like real quick, it does hold up very well because it was fairly advanced at its time. It had the Tegra processor in it, which is quad core, and it had 2 gig of RAM, which, a lot of the lower end, like, not lower end, but a lot of the devices that just aren't smartphones, and even most smartphones, are still only using 2 gig of RAM. So, I mean, this device was, and I knew this when they made it, that they were thinking well ahead with this device, that this was going to stand the test of time. Much like, like people are still using their iPad 2 to this day. And how old is that fucking thing? It's the second iPad, yet it's still the most popular out there. So, it was a sweet spot of devices, I really think. So anyway, that'd be fun maybe to do a review of that, but we'll save that for another episode. We've got a lot of questions to get into in this episode, and I want to try and break them down. We got a couple of, we got a tech question, then a gaming question, then we've got a bit of an ideological question, and hell, then we even have a workout question. In fact, this is a damn funny one. So why don't we go ahead and start breaking into it for this week's Wednesday Q&A. And, of course, feel free to keep sending in questions, or even if you want to send in articles that you want me to talk about. That's something you can do, too. And you can do that either you can use the community tab on Patreon, you can use the private messenger built into Patreon, or, of course, you can use the contact form, which is at contact.zog.ninja, if you want to get in touch with me. I mean, and that just goes to my email address, bbs@sovereigntech.com, if you want more on, or, if you want to send something for that. But if you're going to use something outside of Patreon or even within Patreon, you can let me know. Do you want it to be for a question for a Prime episode, or do you want it to be a question for a Patreon episode? That's what I need to know. So, all right, let's start getting into it here. All right, so here's the question. I use front and rear GoPro cameras while bicycle commuting. Hell yeah. I know microSD cards have limited rewrite quantities. Yeah, this is, of course, true of all flash memory, right? And let's see, reading on. The cameras are set to delete the oldest files if space is needed. My OCD drives me to download and delete my daily rides. Am I prematurely damaging my card in any noticeable way? Would it be better to let the camera sort it out? I mean, they're cheap, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm curious. Okay, so this is a great question to ask. So I don't use like really a whole lot of cameras or anything. I certainly don't use GoPros. I'm very familiar with them, but I do use micro SD cards and SD cards certainly for my for my audio work. Like when I'm on location and I'm using say some kind of Zoom microphone, be it the H6 or the H1 or something like that. So a couple things to consider. Okay. There is the question of, limited rewrites. Personally, there's varying apps that you can check the condition of cards and flash memory and things like this, and it depends on what operating system you're using as far as which one's the best for that. That you could do that if you wanted to while you have it plugged in and while you're, doing, while you're deleting everything on it, you can do that. The rewrite ability is in the thousands, okay? Really, I think the best thing that you can do, so when it's something, really the only time that the rewrite thing is an issue is say when you're using it's more when you're using a solid state drive. Okay, not so much with like just an SD card, because when you're using a solid state drive, usually a lot of operating systems, and there's ways to turn these off or to make them more efficient. They'll have swap files and everything, and you're just constantly writing, or, there was the web browser problem that Firefox had, and I think Chrome even had to some degree, where it was, writing sometimes, tens of gigs a day just from having tabs open and all this other stuff. It's a really ugly situation that they've tried to mitigate over the past year. this is one of the reasons that solid state drives, fail so hard. SD cards themselves, they can last years. I mean, they can really last years with, rewriting. And usually the amount of times that you delete over it, okay, isn't really creating a problem. And it's not exactly shortening the life of the SD card itself, okay. So I don't think that that's so much of a concern. The best thing you could do is treat it like, if you really want to be careful with it, the best thing you can do is treat it much like you would a filter on a refrigerator or like a water filter or something, where, I don't know, every 2 years or something. With a water filter or refrigerator, you do it like every 6 months, but you get my point. Every couple of years, buy new SD cards. And you're right, because they are cheap, or rotate, buy a couple of them. Like you said, they're cheap, and just rotate them out. Like one day use this one and the next day use the other. I think that regardless of whether or not, and you always get a bunch of different answers on this stuff, but whether or not like it lessens the rewrite speeds, I think regularly deleting the data on your SD cards is a great and wonderful thing, just from a privacy perspective. Like if someone, takes your camera or something, I'm sure what you're recording is perfectly mundane, but at the same time, or maybe it's not mundane. Maybe, maybe you're doing really awesome shit. I don't know. But regardless, I think it's a fair idea to just be in the habit of constantly deleting data as much as, and not having it spread all over the place as much as possible. That's just a good security habit to have. So I would do it anyway. And like I said, because it's cheap, regardless of whether it is lessening the life of the SD card, I would just keep in the habit of deleting data over and over again, regardless. And I would just pay the price of getting new SD cards. So, and actually now it depends on what you're doing, because if you are, if you're just deleting it, it's not so bad. If you're doing a full formatting, that's very different. Okay. If you're deleting it, it's designed for that, and you're not really going to hurt it beyond how it's designed to function, and based upon the numbers and the tests that, like, say SanDisk or Samsung or whoever actually puts these cards through. But if you're like formatting it every day, if you're just constantly formatting, then you are lessening the life of that SD card significantly over what it would normally be. Okay, if you're doing a full formatting every time, well, if it's quick formatting, not so much. It depends. Again, that depends on what operating system you're doing. But regardless of all of that, I think the best practice is just constantly delete your data. Like that's just what you should do. So, forget about the mechanical, the technical aspects of it, or the mechanical aspects. There's no mechanics. It's flash memory. But forget about that. Just think about the philosophy of it and just keep deleting your data. I think that's really, really the best way to go with that. And letting the GoPro camera just handle it, it honestly handles it in the same way. Like there's no advantage. There's no difference between you doing the deleting and the GoPro camera doing the deleting. If you're formatting it as to where the GoPro would just be deleting it, deleting the older data as needed, then the advantage as far as lifetime of the SD card goes to the GoPro camera. Okay. But if you're just deleting it and you're not doing the formatting, there's no difference between what the GoPro camera is doing and what you're doing. Okay. Flash memory has been a huge conversation lately on Sovereign Tech, because, man, did I in a very real way get kind of fucked over. So asking questions and keeping up to date on what's happening with flash memory overall, not just micro SD cards, but also solid state drives and everything is a really important thing, because they're just their order of the day. It's what everything uses, and be that good or bad, depending on how you look at it. I think with like portable devices like, a Zoom H6 or the GoPro or something, or a GoPro camera, it's wonderful what can be done with that. The nice thing about micro SD cards, they're practical, or SD cards in general, is they're practically indestructible, especially micro SD cards. It's just a wonderful little technology. So definitely, keep abreast, as it were, of developments in that area. But man, it's amazing. It's amazing how with flash memory, like, as much as I complain about it, it's also incredible. It's amazing how they can keep, what do they have? 2 terabyte micro SD cards now? I mean, that's crazy. I mean, well, I don't know if the 2 terabyte ones are out to market, but I know certainly the 512s are. The 512 gig ones are. And I mean, that's madness. And there's no real change in the overall functionality. Unbelievable, these things. I mean, what a remarkable little technology. No doubt about that. So anyway, let's move on to another conversation here, or another question here. And this is, going from the latest technologies to to the earliest, or kind of the earliest. This is from the community tab. It's actually from Sovereign Tech co-host Robin. He says, man, I really didn't think the crowdfunding campaign for the Atari VCS was going to draw in that many suckers, especially after the whole Coleco Chameleon train wreck. Okay, now this actually falls in line with, I think, a question that I was asked on Twitter, if I remember correctly, asking about, do you think that the Atari VCS, which is the Atari VCS is this new kind of a retro console, but kind of not, definitely taking advantage of the retro, retro console kind of heat movement, you could almost say, that's going on right now, because you have, who's coming? SNK is coming out with a Neo Geo mini, retro console. It's going to have, I don't know, however many games on it. You have the NES Classic will be back in stock at the end of June, June 29th, from Nintendo. Of course, the Super Nintendo Classic is doing very well for itself, and it's actually largely in stock. I've seen some other Sovereign Tech listeners getting their hands on it even recently, and I'm really glad that you guys are getting that, guys and gals and Z's, because I love that fucking thing. And I'll buy every one of these. Well, I won't buy the Atari VCS, but we'll talk about that in a second. But there's a real retro console phenomenon going on right now, and I couldn't be happier about it, because as much as the retro consoles, which have all their games loaded in, don't really connect to the internet. Again, the Atari VCS is something different. We'll talk about that in a second. As much as all these things, that's what I love. Me personally, what I really love about the retro consoles, you buy them, it's one and done. You plug it into your fucking television, and that's the end of it. You have save games and all that. There's no, no online multiplayer, no bullshit. You don't have to connect it. There's no updates. There's none of that crap. It's one and done. Just like the old days. When you bought a game, that game was finished. Warts and all, it was finished. And sometimes those warts became the matter of legend and a lot of fun. So you didn't want them to fix the bugs sometimes, you lose something in the art when you do that, quite frankly. And as we get more and more stories of various mobile games that people have sometimes put in thousands of dollars, players have put thousands of dollars into in-app purchases and whatever else, that their servers get shut down, and then you can't play the game anymore, and they're pulled from the Play Store, or they're pulled from wherever, blah, blah, blah. It's so crazy. The more you hear those stories, you opine for the old days, where you're just like, well, what happened to the days when I owned the fucking game, and I'd put it in and I could play it for the next 50 years, In fact, speaking of the Atari, the original Atari, the Atari 2600, I talk about that all the time. I had an Atari that was 40 years, at the time, it was like 40 some odd years old. And I could still pop in Combat or whatever fucking game or Barnstormer, or put in whatever game I wanted. And I could, or Smurfs, I love Smurfs, put that in, and I could rock it 40 years later. And hell, it's older than me. That's incredible. I played the shit out of that thing. Sure, the joysticks would eventually kind of go bad, but you could actually fix that. Because the joysticks, you could take them apart. Oh man, dude, I complain about that all the time. That there's very few systems. I don't know the systems that we're going to be able to play. We're not going to be able to play PS4s and Xbox Ones 40 years from now. Not a chance. Not a fucking chance. And you're laying down so much money for that? Please. Well, anyway. So the Atari VCS has taken advantage of this retro console craze, and it is I think it's Indiegogo. It's not a Kickstarter, but you get my, it's a crowdfund affair, and it's $199 for this thing. Now they announced this thing like back in July, and I signed up for, because nobody knew at the time. Nobody knew what the hell it was. So they were just saying, oh yeah, it's going to be the Atari VCS, and they announced it, and you could give them their email. You could give them your email address, and they would let you know when things are going on. And I got the emails for when they allowed for pre-orders and all this other stuff, and could get in very early and everything. But by then they were announcing what this thing actually was, and I had no interest. If you want, if they were releasing with the Atari VCS, if they were just releasing, say, a Stella box, which Stella is the emulator for the Atari 2600, or for Atari on on most PCs, that you could play thousands of games, frankly. It's really crazy. If they were just releasing that like a Stella box that just has like, all the Atari games or all the Atari games that they could get the licenses for and whatever. And it's just like, it was the Atari version of an NES Classic. If that's what they were doing, I would have been all over it. Would I have paid $200? No, I would not have paid $200, but I would have been all over it, and they wouldn't have had to charge $200. Now, why the hell are they charging $200? That's because the Atari VCS isn't just that. The Atari VCS is trying to be, it looks like it's trying to take on, honestly, Xbox Ones and PS4s. Like, I mean, it's trying to be your media console. Okay, and it can do a whole ton of shit. It's trying to be a computer. It's trying to be a very little computer. Not that there's anything crazy about that. I mean, Atari, in my opinion, is really the original personal computer company. Like more so than Microsoft or Apple. Fuck those guys. Okay, I mean, Commodore, okay, that's another conversation. But the real personal computer company and the company that in a very real way led the PC revolution was Atari itself. I mean, their machines were badass in their day. All right. So they're kind of going in that direction again, it seems. So I'm not saying that that's like out of line for, and Atari's not Atari anymore. We're not talking about Nolan Bushnell here. Okay. This is just a company that bought the branding rights pretty much. Okay. That's all this is. So it's not out of line for an Atari branding to do this sort of thing, is my point. But I have no interest in this. And it's an Indiegogo. You have no idea that this thing's ever going to actually come out. And they're claiming that it'll be done by July 2019. I guarantee you they're not going to make that date. Mark my words on that. They are not going to make July 2019. And, I mean, all of this is so speculative. It's going to have 100, it will have up to, I think, like 100 Atari games. They announced Asteroids, Breakout, Centipede, Gravatar, Missile Command, Yar's Revenge. I mean, awesome games. Yar's Revenge, especially, I thought was phenomenal. I'm a huge fan of Missile Command and Asteroid. All awesome games. But then, so you're getting the console, but then there's even like, to get the controller, I think it's another $50. I mean, this is so obviously like a ridiculous cash grab that you're not really going to get out of it what I think they're asking for. Okay, you're not going to get the value out of this. But they're saying that it's going to be more or less a modern PC with, it's going to have, wireless AC, right? Wi-Fi. It's going to have Bluetooth 5.0, which practically nothing has Bluetooth 5.0. And I doubt that by July 2019, they're going to be bleeding edge on that. It's going to have Ethernet, USB 3.0 ports. I mean, it's just going to have all this crazy shit. Keyboard, mice. I mean, it's a computer. That's pretty much what they're selling you. And look, folks, in my opinion, if I can't believe it did $2 million in its first day of crowdfunding. That's crazy. What the fuck is going on out there? Okay, because, a company that actually did it pretty good was a few years ago, they tried to bring Commodore back. And they made modern computers that looked like the original Commodore 64, where the entire computer was inside the keyboard and it looked like the classic keyboard and all that. They even tried to do like modern VIC-20s and everything. And I thought that those were really cool. I didn't think that they were going to take off, but I thought that they were really cool. And I think the nostalgia and the passion for the Commodore brand is far greater than it is really for Atari at the end of the day. So I can't believe this did so much money. And I think Robin's right. These people are suckers. And you bring up the Coleco Chameleon. This is one that for a brief time I fell for. For a brief time, I was like, okay, no, yeah, we're gonna bring this back. This is going to be the retro console. They're going to have the right attitude and all that. This is going to be awesome. This isn't even as great, as cool an idea as the Coleco Chameleon was. And the Coleco Chameleon, eventually we found out they were pretty much just, strapping in Super Nintendo boards and everything. Like it was a scam. And I can't see why this is going to be any different. I can't believe some of the people, like I was listening to the Twit Network, and I think Padre was on, who's a very smart guy, albeit he's a Jesuit, but, very smart guy. Certainly when it comes to tech, probably smarter than me, as far as like, getting nitty gritty with it. And he's like, man, I want one of these. I'm like, what? What the hell? I mean, maybe he didn't say whether or not he thought it would actually exist and come out, but I can't believe this. I mean, the only companies you can really trust are, in my opinion, to actually release this shit are the big ones. Is Sega going to come out with its Mega Drive Mini? Yes, I think that's going to happen. Is SNK going to do it? Yeah. In fact, they have some kind of online event going on June 9th, which I'll be interested to see. Some of these companies will do it, and some of them already have. I mean, SNK has had like the handheld Neo Geo over the past 5 years. Among other things. I mean, like there's a track record. There is no track record for this. Is stupid. I mean, and you can go buy the Atari Flashback for what, like not even $50, and that comes with 60 some odd Atari games on it. Okay, it's not 100, but please, or hell, I really do understand the idea of having the console, but $200. I don't even know if I'd buy like a classic Super Nintendo. And it'd have to have more than 30 games, like the SNES Classic had. I don't know if I'd buy like a classic Super Nintendo for that much, for $200. From Nintendo themselves. I mean, yeah, there's the Analog NT or whatever. That's like that Super Nintendo. I mean, that's a really well-made device. But again, that wasn't exactly something you could pre-order it, but that company already had a track record. And that's what makes this hard, is that I get so sick of crowdfunding. I engage in it from time to time. I've backed Kickstarters. I've backed, Indiegogos in the past, and most of them have turned out fairly well, but they're usually not for something of this level. Like, I'm very particular. Like, it'll be a role-playing game that I'll fund, or something that like Crime Think is doing, and stuff like that. It won't be something at this scale. Oh man. Well, I did back Wasteland 3. But again, we're talking about a development. It was an Exile Entertainment. They've come out with Wasteland 2. I mean, like they've done it. So I have a little more confidence in them. There should be no confidence in this whatsoever. I cannot believe that this is taking off. So I guess there's going to be a few different packages that come at different prices. But I'm in awe that this got $2 million. I'm in awe that this got any money. I mean, people are just falling for what I think is an absolute scam. We'll see. Maybe it'll come out. But I can't believe people. Why are there going to be people that are going to put this under their television and it's going to replace their Xbox One or their PS4? I just don't believe that that's going to happen. And sadly, is my understanding of it, a lot of people that have the retro consoles, they play them for about a month and then they just like let them sit there. And that's really sad too, because you could play those, a lot of those games you could play forever. I don't see it. I just don't see this thing taking off. And yeah, and especially like when you have, I wish it was something more like the Coleco Chameleon, where like with the Coleco Chameleon, the promise was that we're going to have new games, but made with retro styling going into cartridges and everything, which was one of the red flags of, do people not, realize how expensive this is going to be? And I kind of understood that point, even though I thought maybe they could still do it. If the Atari was promising that sort of thing, it'd be a lot more interesting. That, no, we're making a platform where you can make your own games. We're going to make new Atari games and all that. But, also the other thing is that a lot of times when people play classic Atari games today, they think it's a joke. They're like, wow, how did I ever play these games? And I can still play Atari games and appreciate them for what they are and kind of the art and majesty. And I think some of them honestly have majesty. I think that they're, it's really impressive what they were able to pull off at the time. And they can be very fun games still because they can require such and so much skill. But yeah, no, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to work. Okay. If you ended up pre-ordering one, you can have me eat my words when this thing actually comes out and you get a great product in your hands, but I just don't believe it's going to happen. I think this is outrageous. So, all right, let's get on to another question here. We're about the halfway mark. And this one's kind of philosophical. And this speaks to a concern that I've had for a few years, and certainly since 2016, certainly since Trump won the election for the United States presidency, that I've felt and been concerned that conservatism is back on the rise. Okay. And one could argue that's been going on for a little while. It's a reaction to, stuff in the 90s, blah, blah, blah. There's a huge conversation to be had around that. But bottom line being, I have concerns that conservatism is back on the rise. Well, according to this story, actually, it's from Gallup, okay, from Gallup poll. Most Americans, and this is from June 4th, 2018, very fresh. Most Americans say alcohol, marijuana use morally okay. Let me read it here, then I'll get into my points. So let's see. Most Americans said in a new poll that smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol are morally okay. In the Gallup poll released Monday, released Monday, I'm guessing based off of June 4th. 1,024 adults across the United States were surveyed about whether they think marijuana or alcohol use is morally acceptable, regardless of whether it should be legal. 78% of Americans surveyed said that drinking alcohol was morally acceptable, and 64% said that smoking marijuana was. The alcohol one, I don't think is any kind of shock. I mean, you're not really getting, it's not prohibition. It's not 100 years ago, and even then, Americans still seem to think that drinking was fine. I don't know anybody that has a real problem with drinking, I don't drink, right? But I don't have a problem with people drinking at all. I think it's completely morally acceptable, totally fine. But that's, and same with marijuana use. The marijuana use one, though, that number of 65%, a part of me is actually shocked it's that low. But I mean, I can see where that's considered high, no pun intended. But where 65% is actually a very high number. I don't really know what it was in the past, but okay, let's read on. Other practices also tied record highs or set new records for more permissive views this year, including birth control, divorce, sex between unmarried people, gay or lesbian relations, having a baby outside of marriage, doctor-assisted suicide. That's interesting. Pornography and polygamy. Or I would assume, that would tie in with polyamory, perhaps using the term, polygamy. As I've said in past episodes, there can be genuine issues with the concepts of polygamous marriage, especially under Mormonism and all that. But polygamy or, polyamorous relationships where it's more than two people engaged in the relationship, are very wonderful things, and I've talked about those at length. But anyway, reading on. Meanwhile, moral acceptance of medical testing on animals at 51% was at a record low. That's interesting. Gallup's annual Values and Beliefs Survey was conducted by telephone May 1st through the 10th with a random sample of 1,024 adults 18 and older living in all 50 U.S. states and the District of Columbia. It has a 4% margin of error. So, okay, I mean, and look, great. What I'm hearing here, if these are, according to Gallup and their sample sizes, if these are increased numbers where, a lot of social issues are becoming more socially acceptable, where I guess, drug use and consumption, along with even, honestly, birth control, divorce, and a lot of things, a lot of relationship matters that were normally only considered okay inside of a marriage are now okay outside of marriage, and, LGBTQ issues and all that stuff becoming all far more acceptable. I mean, awesome. Dynamite. I'm glad to hear that. And I mean, really, I'm not kidding. I think that's fucking wonderful that that's how things are going, based upon Gallup's poll here. My concern more is still that this 1,024 people aren't libertarians and anarchists. Most likely they're not. And I still have the concern that the bulk of libertarianism, let me back up a little bit. So you had this libertarianism that rose, this very special, what I'll call online libertarianism, or maybe even Facebooktarianism, which came out of the Ron Paul, the 2008 and 2012 elections, right? The whole Ron Paul movement, is where you get this online libertarianism or Facebooktarianism. I mean, it's preposterous to me to think that there are activists who think they're doing something and they only do it online. I mean, okay. I'm a Facebook activist, right? Sure you are. What are you, standing up against the algorithms? Because that's what you're actually going to have to take on. If you're even dreaming about trying to change anybody's opinion, you got to get past those first. So you have this Facebooktarianism that was a thing up until, right around 2015, we'll say. We'll say it went from 2007 to 2015, okay? If you want to do a clean decade, you could say it was 2007 to 2017 when Trump finally got, officially in office. I mean, look, the libertarianism, in my personal opinion, libertarianism is dead. All right, like and ANCAPism, or anarcho-capitalism, all that stuff. I mean, they're gone. They're dead. And what I think really, I mean, what happened is, I mean, people still want to claim that they are ANCAPs, blah blah blah. The Mises Institute still thinks they're doing something important, etc. All right, look, I'm not saying that they don't. I'm not saying that they don't do interesting things. And certainly, I mean, the Mises Institute has Roderick Long. I love Roderick Long. But most of the people that were really into the Mises Institute, really into libertarianism and all that, they didn't evolve into the direction of Roderick Long. They evolved, I think, into the direction of, boy, this is such a big subject, and we have another great question to get into. Okay. So I've been involved in libertarianism and to some degree ANCAPism back in the day, since, we'll say, like really heavy. Since like 2009, 2010 is when I really got into it. And at the time, I mean, a lot of the quote unquote action was honestly happening on Facebook. I mean, even in 2011, like I met Ron Paul and Keene, I mean, I was not that I was into the whole political thing, but I recognized what he had done for this. I mean, at that point I was already well an anarchist and, didn't believe in the political process whatsoever. But that's the thing is at the time, certainly 2010, 2011, and maybe even still 2012, you had so many people, in this Facebooktarianism that were, they were anti-political. They wouldn't get into electoral politics for anything. They called themselves voluntarists and all this other stuff, which voluntarist, by the people that created the term, made it very clear that voluntarists do not engage in electoral politics. And I mean, and it's brilliant stuff. Like I love Carl Watner's work. I love Wendy McElroy's work. Like I mean, these are names that don't get talked about enough to this day. People are too busy talking about, I don't know, guys that have popular podcasts or something. And I think that that's a real shame because these people deserve far more attention because they've got the much more well-reasoned arguments on their side and they don't fall prey to a lot of, penny ante bullshit. So, you had so many people that were just like, no, I'm not voting. I'm not doing this. I'm not getting involved in that. And now, I mean, this is why I think all of this is effectively dead because now, like it seems like everybody just went into politics. Everybody started getting involved in politics. And honestly, like I feel like so much of the quote unquote liberty movement, went conservative as to where it wasn't always so. That. And so, over the past few years, I mean, it's just, I feel like what it once was, I mean, you can still, libertarianism still exists. Like the Libertarian Party is still a thing. Libertarianism and its abstract concepts are still very much a thing and still, kind of popular, you could say, with people. But the really principled libertarianism is gone. Or seems to be very much gone. There's still people who stick by it. I mean, I could think of a few names like Jake DeSillis of the Voluntary Life. He's still pushing very principled libertarianism, and I appreciate that. There's lots of these other guys that still push all that. No, we don't engage in politics. We don't bother with that, and blah blah blah. But I mean, now, but by and large, that's a dead idea. It feels like, okay. So while I'm glad to hear that socially people are really becoming, shall we say, more liberal, and I don't mean that as in the leftist term, I just mean liberal as in lax, right? And they're letting people do what they want to do and leaving them alone. That is dynamite. But I think what was originally the libertarianism, or what was originally the liberty movement, is moving in the opposite direction. And if they're the people that are trying to get to libertarian paradise, but they think that there's certain ways that people need to act, or that there's certain genetic traits that these people have, that people have to have, blah 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 blah. I'm still very concerned. So dynamite that the bulk of the country is moving in the right direction in that sense, in the liberal sense. Okay, but I'm concerned that the liberty movement itself is moving more in the conservative direction, and. I don't know, maybe people just got older. I mean, actually, a lot of the people I know just became apathetic and they just dropped out of it entirely. Like so many people that were in the liberty movement have just completely dropped out. They're done with it. I mean, I don't know what, if somebody made one too many videos and they just had a fuck enough of the bullshit that these people are peddling. I mean, and I can barely think of anybody that falls under the term of celebritarian that hasn't shown that they're a completely unprincipled fuck over and over again. It's not like it's just, I mean, yeah, people make mistakes, but I mean, look at the crap that happened with what's his name there? Larkin Rose, right? Where here's this guy who's, oh yeah, you got to respect contracts. Contracts are the basis of free society, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes and he pays no attention to a marriage contract, you know, and ends up stooping some guy's wife. Like, what the fuck? You know, I mean, I don't, you know, me, I mean, I hate contracts. I'm just saying I'm using his perspective is that contracts are this great and wonderful thing. And yeah, he doesn't even respect them. I mean, like, what the hell? You know, that's why I say, like, it's, I mean, it's not dead, but for all intents and purposes, it sure as fuck isn't what it was. And now it hasn't really, in my opinion, turned into any kind of outreach. Like at one point, it might have been some kind of outreach. Now it's just become very insular. And, you know, I mean, I think a lot of these people are living in echo chambers. Not all. Like I said, there's people who are libertarian. I've said this so many times on Q&As. There's people who call themselves libertarians, who call themselves ANCAPs and whatever. They're just some of the most dynamite and wonderful people on planet Earth, and I love them. Okay? There's plenty. I mean, there's actually quite a few that I can think of off the top of my head. All right, but you know, the larger stuff, I mean, when you look at some of these pages, okay, so say like these Facebook pages or these Twitter accounts or something, and these people have tens of thousands of followers, okay, on these pages or on these accounts or whatever. The bulk of those tens of thousands of people are not really principled libertarians, right? I mean, because if they were, and if they were also into, you know, taking action and things like this, shit would be happening. I mean, the only possible answer is, or there's two possible answers. One is that the bulk of those thousands and tens of thousands are fake, as in they're bought, you know, by the celebritarian or something, or they are pushing the liberty movement or whatever into maybe a political direction, and which I think we did see significantly through the campaign for with Trump. And did I say 2017 that Trump got put in officially? Sorry, I mean you know what I mean. It was 2016. Whatever. The years don't matter. Bottom line, the facts remain. Okay. In fact, honestly, I'm happy that like I get the years wrong about presidencies and my lack of political knowledge. I mean, I'm proud of it now. You know, it's where it used to be quite different. I mean, I used to know all kinds of shit about that, and like now I don't care, and I don't have time for it. Like I'm too busy actually trying to build the future, and certainly for myself and the people that I love. So yeah, what used to be, you know, this online movement of libertarianism, again, I think it's gone two ways. Either it's gone to apathy in general. I mean, this isn't 100% true across the board. It's either gone to people who have become apathetic about it and just moved on, or they've gone to effectively conservatism, you know. But again, does that really matter? Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe because, you know, society at large is becoming, more liberal as far as, you know, becoming more socially liberal, right? That, you know, maybe it doesn't matter. And, you know, what becomes the new norm might not change the laws, but it'll certainly keep people from ignoring them. How about that? And certainly I've been pushing very, very seriously for, you know, social issues, you know, for people to become far more morally liberal, or perhaps amoral in a way. You could describe it as that. That's definitely been something I've been pushing on Sovereign Tech. So when the Sovereign Tech listener said, hey, you're winning, I'm like, yeah, well, I guess in that sense I am, which is good. But anyway, all right, let's, as long as they're not going to make laws about it. you can decrim it, you know, get rid of the laws, but don't go making laws about it. Actually, even like going through the process of getting rid of the laws is still playing politics, but whatever. So, all right, let's get on to the other question here. This is pretty funny. Hey, Stallion, I've noticed some of your pictures on Instagram, and I have to say you look sexy as hell. Oh, thank you. And I don't know if I agree with that, and I have to agree with the commentator on one picture that you are one of the few men I actually think are attractive. Well, I'm honored. Real quick, I want to talk about this. Okay, yes, I post stuff on Instagram. We were just talking about how, you know, kind of like these online social movements, how they're pretty much like fading away, or they've morphed into something completely different and just kind of falling into a greater herd. I mean, and there's been some, speaking of polls and statistics, there have been some statistics to show really it seems like Instagram is the only social media that actually really gets use and like that really has any kind of bearing and following. And certainly people have tried to copy and unseat Instagram and it hasn't worked. Facebook was definitely, and I've said this before on Cybertech, Facebook was very smart to acquire Instagram, especially at a time when, because now we find out also that we talked about in episode 280, it ended up becoming true that Microsoft is buying GitHub for $7.5 billion, I think. I forget. Instagram was a huge deal back, a few years ago. It was like one of the largest deals of its day. But Facebook probably would have had to pay $20 million for it today if they bought it today, because Instagram is just taking so much mind share and attention share. But really, it does seem to be the social media network, where you could potentially, and I know I've gotten, actually, I can't believe this. It's the only one, I think, where I've genuinely brought in new listeners from like, way outside of any kind of social circle that I normally run other than maybe nerddom, and wow, but I'm not telling you to get on Instagram. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, yes, I will still post there from time to time. But I post, inspirational art there every day, but whatever. Anyway, that's a whole other story. I'm not saying get on Instagram. Okay. That's not what I'm telling you. But anyway, so really honored by what this gal had to say here. Reading on, I've told my boyfriend that he needs to get his flabby ass into shape or I'm going to go full lesbian. Okay. Well, as you've said on a Prime show, he needs to read more too. But one thing at a time. Okay, I was not directly telling anybody that they have to read more, but I think I get what you're saying. Yes, I've told the abstract Sovereign Tech audience, get reading. You need to read books, actual books, not Facebook. Okay, reading on. He said he'll start working out if I buy him the equipment, so I'll buy him the equipment. My question is, oh man of tomorrow, where do I start? You know where I'm going to tell you to start? Fuck this guy. No, I don't mean like have sex with him. I mean, fuck this guy. Oh, yeah, I'll work out if you buy me the equipment. No, I mean, not that anybody has to work out. Your best self is subjective and it's completely up to you. And maybe, working out or getting in shape and stuff like that isn't what you consider to be your best self or what makes you the most happy. Those are the things that are important, right? Okay, but holy shit, if I was a gal and the guy told me and I was talking to them and I'd say, hey, I mean, I don't know what's going on in your relationship here. Okay. But if I said, I really like it, like, I'd love it if you'd work out with me, if you'd get into shape, I'm concerned about your health or something like this. And they said, well, fine, I'll do it if you buy it for me. I'm just using your term. I don't mean to insult anybody, but it's probably no shock that this guy's out of shape if he's not even, if he can't even buy his own shit. Or whatever. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, but what the fuck? Do not buy this guy his workout equipment. Just dump him. Go ahead. Go full lesbian. I think this is what I think you already came up with the answer here. And the answer is not what workout equipment to buy. The answer is just go full lesbian already. Okay, dump the bum. Like, what the fuck? Of course, maybe this guy is somebody that I don't know. Maybe this guy is someone that's also a Sovereign Tech patron, and I don't know it. And if I lose a patron over this because I called him a bum, well, whatever. I think you're pulling bullshit, buddy. But anyway, okay. So, but I will still answer the question. Okay, maybe you really want to do it for him. Maybe there's circumstances I don't understand that explain why. But based on the way that you said it. That's what I read in. So anyway, so first things first, yeah, just go full lesbian already. Okay. Find that exceptional guy. If you really need a guy, go out and find the exceptional ones. They're out there. There are not many. In fact, you might only be able to count them on your hands, but go find that. Otherwise, most women are exceptional. Dare I say all? Well, not all, but I can think of some women that aren't exceptional. But most women are more exceptional. So it's, it's a larger pool that you get to choose from as far as exceptional beings go. So just go lesbian. That's my answer on that. No. Okay. No, like I said, I will, like she says here, my question is, oh man of tomorrow, where do I start? All right. So I appreciate your compliments towards, my physique. I don't think it's that great. I mean, I'm not saying that I haven't done good work. Okay. But I'm not being falsely modest here. All right. I'm just saying that, like, I'm not Jay Cutler. I'm not like at that level or anything. And I am working towards getting to those levels. But anyway, so where I'm at right now, if you liked what you saw, bottom line, I can't believe I'm talking about this. If you liked what you saw, I only, 99% of the time I am using dumbbells, and that's it. I have an easy curl bar. Sometimes I use that, but it's not rare, but I mean, that's it. Like, I'm using dumbbells, I'm using adjustable weight plates and everything. I'm not using a full bench. I'm not using machines. I'm not using any of that stuff. 99% of the time. The only time I'm using machines is when I'm traveling and I go to like a hotel gym or something like that and they have machines. Even then, if they have dumbbells, I'll generally just use their dumbbells. Okay. You don't need a lot of equipment. In fact, I think Stephanie and I covered this. We answered this in a recent Sovereign Tech Prime episode, so I don't know how long you've been listening, but that's okay. I can readdress it here. I think it's important to do. Yeah, I mean, you can get some equipment, but and machines are great. I'm not saying that machines are a terrible thing. And in fact, honestly, maybe getting a gym membership, might be the more cost-effective thing to do for your boyfriend. I don't know. But if you want the equipment in-house, maybe it's so that you can use it too. I mean, then you definitely want to get, just get a great set of dumbbells that are adjustable, where you can put on the different weights. I mean, I don't know how much money you can spend on it, but if you're just starting out, yeah, get an adjustable set of dumbbells that, you can get some interesting ones where they're easy to switch between weights. And usually they go anywhere between 5 to 50 pounds. If you start getting above where you're curling, say, more than 50 pounds or you're pressing more than 50 pounds, you're going to, then you're in a whole different ball game. Okay. Cause then you're more in my direction, where I'm generally, messing with, the 60 to 100 pound range, if not, well, depending upon what the exercise is, significantly more. Okay. I mean, I'll mess around. I can bench, approximately 300, I can max 300 right now. Okay. But, usually I'm not messing around with a bench. That's the thing. It's like, okay, so I get to a gym, they have a bench. All right, let's see what I can do on that. And the bench press, how much can you bench? That's a bullshit metric anyway, in a very real way. Like most serious bodybuilders and people like that are into fitness, that's not something they really pay attention to, at all. And I'm a believer now that, you have two different schools of thought on this. Okay. There's people who think that using a straight bar, which is like a bar that you bench press, right? Put two hands on and all that. There's people who think that that's a totally legit thing, or using that for squatting and all that. And certainly for squats, yeah, a straight bar is something that you may want to use. I get that. Okay. I'm not taking, there's different styles. People have different strokes, different ways that they work out. I completely understand that. I'm not disrespecting any of them. Okay. But in my opinion, and the research that I am working off of is that, the human body is designed, like your limbs, okay, your arms, your legs, all these things are meant to work independently of each other. Okay. Not in such perfect concert to where you would use a straight bar, to do various workouts, or like where you would do a bench press. In fact, if you look in like the muscle man, you look in fitness, Muscle and Fitness or whatever, because I think they combine with Flex. So Flex isn't really a magazine anymore, but you look in that, you look in Iron Man, you look in, muscle and development and all that stuff. Most of the time when you see the really big guys doing their workouts, it's interesting. If you see them doing a press, they're doing it with dumbbells, not with a straight bar, not with a barbell. Okay. They're doing it with dumbbells every time you see them doing it. And that's because, as I understand it, based upon like the work of Bob Ciccarello and others, like they're saying that, in a lot of the big gyms, like that dumbbells are the thing. They want you working the stuff independently because it's getting you away from potential injuries from working out and lifting weights in such an unnatural way. Again, there's a lot of different schools of thought on this. This is the one that I go with. And granted, I'm biased because it makes it very easy so that I don't have to have a whole setup in mine and Stephanie's home gym, to where, I need to accommodate a barbell. Okay, so much. Again, an easy curl bar, that's a handy thing to have because sometimes there are certain workouts that might be beneficial with that. But, even like, say easy bar, probably the most common thing it's used for is a preacher curl. You can do preacher curls single arm. You don't have to do it with two. So my opinion, you start off, you get a really great adjustable set of dumbbells, and get a bench, a weight bench that can incline and decline. Okay. If the bench can also have like some kind of leg press or leg lifting, leg workout apparatus at the end of it, that's great. Okay. You might not be able to find that, or it costs too much. That's fine. You don't need that because you can work out your legs just as well with those dumbbells, all day long. Okay. Really. So that's where I would start. You just get yourself a great, and again, like if you knew the very small amount of gym equipment that I have, all right, you'd probably be shocked. Like I use very, very little. And I don't think, I know some people say you want to start with kettlebells. I'm not convinced that kettlebells work very well in my experience. So just get yourself, a nice set of dumbbells, get that weight bench that can do an incline. And in fact, the incline, that can be very handy because when you can adjust the bench, say you get to the point where the dumbbells that you have, I don't know, maybe it goes up to like 35 pounds or something. Okay. Say the dumbbells that you have, you grow past that to where, no, you need to be lifting 40s or 45s. If you have an incline bench, you can change, like say you're doing dumbbell curls, you can change the incline of the bench and do the dumbbell curls on an incline, and then a pair of 35 or 25 pound dumbbells is going to kill you. Like, it's going to be a significantly harder workout. You can change that up, or you can even face the other direction and do what they call spider curls. And you'll be lucky if you could lift 20 pounds, if you could curl a 20 pound dumbbell. So that's why it's important. I think the weight bench is where you really want to put the money, because if you can adjust the weight bench, the dumbbells can become far more dynamic in what you can do with them. Okay. So that's where I would start off, and it doesn't take up much space. I can get a great workout in a very, very small space, as long as you're not living in an apartment. And if you're living in an apartment, then you're going to want to go with workout bands. Okay. As long as you're not living in an apartment, you can really, in my opinion, I'm not saying I have an amazing physique. I'm telling you can get to the point anybody can get to an amazing physique just with dumbbells and a great weight bench. Okay. And nothing more. Really nothing, absolutely nothing more, because you could still do dips and all this other stuff with that. A dipping station of some kind where it looks like a walker or something, that's a great piece of equipment to get as well, because you can do a lot of different things with that. You can get into little pieces of equipment that you can add on here or there, like an ab wheel. Those are handy. You can get those sorts of things, but in general, you can just get so far and do so much with a set of dumbbells and a really great weight bench. So, all right, let's get into our album of the week quickly. And the album of the week, it's a very quick pick. And the quick pick is actually a release from this year in 2018, earlier in the year. But the aforementioned, we talked about Zakk Wylde earlier, the aforementioned Black Label Society, they came out with a compilation called Grimmest Hits. Instead of Greatest Hits, it's Grimmest. And I not Grimaced, but Grim is in, this is Grimm. So Grimmest Hits. And it's an awesome, awesome collection. Overall, what is it, like 13? Or it depends on which version. If you get the Japanese version, I think it's like 14 songs. But they have three new songs on it. There's Room of Nightmares, which is awesome. Seasons of Falter and The Day That Heaven Had Gone Away. All awesome tracks. And then they just, they hit you with, Trampled Down Below. It opens up with All That Once Shined, Only Words. Black Label, talk about something I like working out to. Black Label Society is fucking great workout music. You got to check it out. So, Grimmest Hits. That's my recommendation for album of the week. I mean, oh man, wait till you hear like Illusions of Peace. I mean, this is an awesome collection. And as soon as you hear it, you're going to want to just end up getting. I mean, Black Label just keeps getting better. So I guarantee you're going to go back to all their other albums as soon as you hear this. But I love this collection, and it's been, along with, honestly and ironically or interestingly perhaps, the soundtrack for The Greatest Showman. It's one of the albums that's been, kind of on replay over and over and over again for me. So just badass stuff. So check it out. Anyway, okay, that is it for your Wednesday Q&A this week. More episodes will probably come out this week, and we got some really fun surprises to come out over the next couple of weeks. And of course, the live show at PorkFest is going to be happening. That's going to be exciting as hell. So anyway, you just wait for all of it, baby, because you know that the Golden Stallion delivers it to you. I will see all of you on the other side.